If you know, you know. It's time to become Flame Hyenard, bro.
Burn to the ground! 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 Burn! Burn! Burn to the ground! Burn to burn! 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 Burn to the ground! 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 Burn! Burn! Burn to the ground!
Baby, wake up. Salvation just posted.
You know, a standard fire Eclipse build with a couple things thrown in there. This build is kind of like a 2-in-1 type of deal, inspired by IKEA and Matt Goes Buck in a sense, because we'll get to the other part later. But for now, this is like a version I would use for group, where we are utilizing survivalists for the protection from elites and the extra damage like for the other team, as well as the access to incendiary grenades, because when we throw our nade, not only do we get the immediate stats effect, but with our lefty we get perfect sledgehammer, which allows us to do 20% more damage, and they don't move, so we can just abuse them. And we're going to be pairing it with our capacitor for the increased skill damage, or in this case extra burn damage, paired with the vial for that extra dot damage. We're also using capacitor just for a base of getting some weapon damage on our own, so we don't just feel like a complete we're just there just wasting DPS. And we're throwing in a harvest for the future perfect talent. So if say we get a kill with our harvest, we can be able to get overcharge, which exaggerates the stats of our burn and our stinger hive, which is the other skill we are using. We are using the Eclipse protocol on the backpack and chest piece, so we can get that 30% stats effect damage on all targets, as well as being able to have the spread range increase from 10 to 15 meters and the refresh percentage. We're not too concerned about the refresh percentage. I'm mainly using this just so I can be able to lock down a room even better. And very interesting choice for me. I'm not sure how effective this is, but I saw the 16% status effect with the grease named shiny monkey gear. And for my other skill, aside from the the fire starter chem launcher, we are using a stinger hive to apply bleed. And even though bleed is the weakest of the stats effects, it's still extra damage on top of our vial. And most of our stats are contributed to stats effects and skill haste. So this way we can effectively prolong the status as much as we can with our fire, as well as be able to try and get our chems and particularly our stingers as fast as humanly possible. So say if we're in an area and there's particularly a spawn door that we happen to be hiding behind, we can just plop that there and just be straight chilling. Nothing too crazy here, though. No, it does kind of feed this little fantasy I've had. It brings this weird thought that I'm playing Destiny again, but in a completely different. And as far as our alternative version, we are this is where the Matt Goes Buck inspired portion of this build comes to mind, where we are utilizing Iron Lung, except this time we are using Firewall. Now you can still get away with using Survivalists, because I personally prefer Survivalists for group play and would rather use Firewall for say a solo instance. But in a case where I forget to put on the Survivalist portion, or there happens to be a dedicated healer to where I don't have to worry about as much, and I'm assuming they're using perfect opportunistic and such, that we're going to be using Iron Lung for our actual damage sense, as well as using Firestarter for those pesky dogs and chungas, because those primer rounds are really strong, and you can literally set anything on fire at that point. And you may be wondering, why are we using a Cheska piece? This is to really to reinforce that, okay, what if I don't want to just be all skills? What if I want to actually put in some damage? Well, we can do that with the iron, with having a Cheska with a modified skill haste and obliterate, and basically the same setup, just swapping out the Eclipse chest piece and putting them on the knee pads. And with the crit chance and crit damage, we are sitting at 51%, 51.9% crit chance and 121% crit damage. This is due in part with how with the given stats that you get with Iron Lung, but you can also do some sort of damage like with Ad Clear. You're not going to be able to have as much free reign with the fire because, well, you're going to be using Iron Lung, but with its own separate fire, but with Iron Lung having its own fire, it shouldn't be as much of an issue, especially if you're doing a fairly decent enough job spawn camping the door as is. It's kind of like a more of a 2-in-1 sort of build, but I personally prefer the capacitor variation since it feels like I get a lot more out of it, especially since in this very iteration I'm using a Reviver Hive because, well, this is just in the off chance I'm playing by myself, whereas with the survivalist version with the Stinger Hive, it's like I have more free will to just play reckless but not completely reckless. However, if you want a different, more, I would say more optimized version of this build, you can replace the backpack if you want with let's say an opportunistic backpack. And instead of using an Iron Lung or a capacitor, if you truly want to, you can go with Scorpio to really hold down certain targets and prevent them from moving. This is just my preferred way of using a fire-based Eclipse. Overall, this can be a very fun CC or crowd control type of build that I would take in a good few heroic missions. I wouldn't recommend this in legendaries as well. I think foam on its own is just a much better type of CC than fire, because with fire, the NPCs can still run away and hide at some points, and I feel like the much safer option if you want to go like the true challenging endgame stuff is foam. And I haven't made a foam build type of thing, but it's something I've quickly. But it's been real. Thank you so much. As the GOAT would say, good luck, have fun, don't die, and